If I would have to say anything good would come out of this pandemic, I would say that it is being forced, able to spend more time with my two boys. Now, most of you know that they are 12 and 18. So, that long ago playing peekaboo game when they were babies has been replaced by video games and baseball. And while I celebrate my boys' growth, I'm going to be honest, sometimes I miss playing that simple, silly game of peekaboo, disappearing and reappearing when I'd pop around the corner or out from a blanket. But alas, my boys, like all children, have grown and acquired what is called object permanence. It is that developmental stage when babies learn that things, objects, teddy bears, parents, exist, even when they can't be seen or heard. Now, while children naturally develop this sense of object permanence, I'm afraid this is something our culture, our country hasn't quite grown into yet. You see, I feel that there has been a real lack of awareness of racism and the inequities that have undergirded our history, institutions, and economy. To put another way, to this day, some people insist that because they can't see it, it doesn't exist. Whether that be a microscopic virus, microaggressions, or macro injustices. I started this sermon by suggesting that some good has come from the pandemic, and I think the same should be said about the protests, the unrest, the videos, the pain, the apocalypse that we have seen growing in our country. And yes, you might have noticed I just said apocalypse, because that's what Jesus says in our gospel for today. In verse 26, the gospel writer Matthew, his Jesus declares, "So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, or nothing is covered that will not be apocalypsetai. Nothing secret will not become known. Nothing that is veiled will be not veiled." The Greek word apocalypse, you might know or remember me saying sometime or have learned, it actually does not mean catastrophe. It doesn't mean the end. It means a revealing or unveiling. Like pulling the curtain back in that scene from The Wizard of Oz. It is uncovering and speaking truth, dispelling delusion, evaporating fantasy, forsaking presumed innocence. And in that way, I guess it is an end. It's an end to lies, an end to false narratives. And yes, that is uncomfortable, and yes, it can be painful. Poet Adrienne Maree Brown had written several years ago now. She wrote that things were not getting worse, meaning police brutality isn't new, it's not worse, it's just that we are seeing it now. And she continues, she says, "Things are not getting worse, they're getting uncovered. And we must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil." And so in this passage from Matthew, I truly believe that Jesus is talking about naming names, pointing out pains, unveiling evil. Now, I am not saying that COVID was sent onto this world as a plague, just as protesters are not thugs and pests. We are, though, in an apocalypse where the truth of our world is being revealed. And yes, it really isn't looking that pretty or that good. However, I also believe truly that that is only one part of the story. Because healing comes from uncovering. We know that physically, wounds need air to heal. Wounds need to see the light of day. They don't do well coated and covered. So healing comes when we move beyond sugar-coated whitewashing, nostalgia. True healing enables us to not fear. Because I think what is also being unveiled is of God. Even if Satan and all the forces of evil want to keep it all covered up and blind us, have us just going merrily on our way, God's love is also being uncovered. And God's love, I think, is the only thing that is truly permanent. It is also what Jesus calls us to hold on to, but not just in the secret in our souls, but as he says, to shout from the rooftops, to embody with our whole being, kind of like the healthcare workers who go in and day out, putting their bodies, their lives at risk to save others. How about Samantha Francine, a protester who not only stood her ground when a larger white male, Jay Snowden, yelled profanities at her. She stood there and looked him in the eye. But then later, Miss Francine delivered a gift basket to that man's wife. Or what if we heard taking up the cross, carrying our cross differently, and pictured Patrick Hutchinson, a black man, part of the Black Lives Matter protest in London, who, with the help of friends, picked up an injured white man, a white man who had come as an anti-protester and had been injured. But Patrick Hutchinson picked him up, put him on his shoulder, and carried him to safety. Perhaps with the eyes of faith, we can see an unveiling of a new picture of our God, a new picture of picking up our cross, one that looks a lot like these people, regular people, a lot like us, people who are loved and know that love and feel that love, feel it so fearlessly and fiercely that we can follow Jesus. And this would unveil and show us ourselves. Show us what God wants us to be and do, unveiling our purpose, our role, our meaning, our gifts, unveiling all of the beauty that God has in store and in us. Amen.